Okay, welcome. So tonight's workshop is about developing your own guided walks. It's part of the Out and About Archaeology sort of mini festival that the Council for British Archaeology does. And please hopefully find out more about that later. And please do get out and about as part of this. And hopefully we'll see you next year out and about leading your own tours. So firstly, who am I? So my name is Jim Butler. I'm a former primary school teacher from back in the day. And then the past 20 plus years, I've been working in the museums and heritage sector, mostly in learning, public engagement and those sorts of roles. I'm a freelance heritage learning and events specialist, delivering events around the country. And I'm also currently the part-time events officer for the Council for British Archaeology. Now, you may remember about 5 years ago, the world went a bit upside down and we got all told to stay indoors except for 1 hour a day. During that time, I got a bit bored and I came up with the idea of creating a YouTube channel. I'm from Leicester, clearly, and I live in Leicester still. And so I created a YouTube channel called Hidden Histories of Leicester. And as part of that, I developed an uncanny skill for pointing behind me whilst looking at a screen, like so. But that actually was the first time I really kind of went into doing anything sort of public and sort of having the confidence to do that. And when we came out of lockdown and the world started to right itself again, I was initially asked if by Ride Leicester, who are part of Leicester City Council, who encourage people to get on their bikes in the nicest possible way, if I would be willing to do some history-based tours for them. And I thought, okay, why not? So I did a Roman one, was my first one. And then for the past few years, I've been doing more and more rides for Ride Leicester, and that has then sort of snowballed into doing guided walking tours for a variety of groups, mostly for the public, some for private groups. I've done it for scout groups and families and all sorts, and to the point where even now sometimes I go dressed up in Victorian gear, the whole lot, if it's going to be a thematic route. But they are all my walking tours and rides are fundamentally based in local history and what there is in and around Leicester. So I've been doing this for about 5 years now. It is great fun. It's a lot of hard work writing the tours, but when you've got them, providing either no one finds anything new or no one demolishes half of a road and you have to reroute it. But they are really good fun to do. You get really great feedback from people, and I can highly recommend doing it. So if you can do it, go for it. But how on earth do we go about it? Which is why we're here today. So I've got, I think, about 9 or 10 steps that I'll take you through. The webinar is being recorded, so don't feel you've got to frantically write everything down. You know, you will be able to, this will get edited and uploaded onto the CBA website, so you will be able to come back and watch it again and again if you want to. So first of all, make sense, choose your topic. So the first one I did was Roman Leicester. And when you're choosing your topic, some things to think about are, firstly, is it interesting? You know, is it going to have broad appeal other than just yourself? You might love, you know, the intricacies of numismatics made in Droitwich in the 16th century. I don't know. However, is that going to have mass appeal? So have a think about, you know, are the stories you want to tell, are the places you want to show off, you know, is it part of an interesting theme? If not, how can you make it slightly more engaging? Have a think. Is there enough to talk about? Which may seem a silly question. but you would hope so. I would love to do something on Viking Leicester, but there's hardly anything, in terms of archaeology about Viking Leicester, and not really enough for me to do a tour of it. So I've parked that. Hopefully, I'm waiting for ULAS or another archaeological service to find lots of Viking stuff. Unfortunately, they have a habit for finding dead kings and Roman stuff at the moment. But I can but hope. And then think about, is it accessible, both physically and intellectually? So is the subject matter, engaging and intellectually attainable? And also then physically, if you're going to walk around those sorts of spaces that you think are linked with it, is it accessible? And if not, think, okay, well, how can we overcome that? Is there a way I can either bring that really awesome piece of carving and medieval masonry, which is up on top of that cathedral that we can't really actually see? Is there any way I can perhaps recreate it or bring images of it or something to make it accessible on the ground, or other things like that? So have a think about those sort of broad topics to start off with, and just, mull it over in your head and think how it all might fit together. Secondly, again, this is not, I should say, rocket science stuff. This is, it's just quite basic things, but just thinking the process through. So obviously, research your topic is the, it goes, makes sense, of course. So focus on the subject elements relevant to your location and immediate area. So let's say I'm doing Roman Leicester. There's probably not much point me doing lots of research on Asia Minor in the reign of Marcus Aurelius or something like that, because it's nothing to do with Leicester. So obviously keep your focus. Yeah, you've got your broad subject matter, but again, look for those really local relevant links, because they're the bits that people tend to get excited about. From my experience, people love to find out things they didn't know about places they do know. And that is kind of where the magic happens, is that if you can get somebody to look at somewhere that they pass every day, or that they think they know really well, with a completely fresh set of eyes, you literally see their minds just get blown. It is fantastic. So really try to think about, okay, what are the local links? What are the really exciting things that people are going to really engage with? Wikipedia, a lot of people say don't touch Wikipedia. I quite like Wikipedia as really as a, if there's when you're doing research, what I've found is a lot of the time it pings off in all sorts of random tangents, and you'll come across either periods or people or something like that. A Wikipedia search is great to just touch base and figure out, oh, okay, that's where that is. But then just don't rely on whatever Wikipedia says. Because it really is hit and miss, and you want to make sure that when you are doing your research, you will get questions when you're out and about with members of the public, usually broader than the subject matter that you're talking about. And there are people out there who know infinitely more, know more about any subject than you do, guaranteed. So kind of don't leave yourself open to ridicule, effectively, if you've not done your research. Make sure you have a look around. So Wikipedia can be a great introduction, but really you want to start looking deeper. So cross-referencing with reliable sources, go to your local records office, your museums, your libraries, archives, those sorts of things. And then there are digital and online tools that you can use as well. So some of you may be aware of, and others may not, is your local heritage environment record. Now I'm going to try and blow my laptop's mind by doing a live link, and hopefully it will take me to the website and you'll still be able to see it. Here we go. Oh, that's typical, isn't it? Give me a moment. Let's refresh. Let's go to the Heritage Gateway. We'll do it old school. Right. Bear with the caller whilst my internet goes crazy. Let's close down some of these windows as well. No, okay, that's really unhelpful. Well, if you go to heritagegateway.org.uk, and I am going to try again, it should just bring up, try a different one, I'm just going. Oh, what is this? Heritage Gateway. I do apologise for this, folks. Best laid plans and all that. It did work earlier, I promise you.
Hi, Jim. I think the website's down.
Typical. Have we crashed it? Okay. We might come back to that a little bit later. We'll try my next one. Okay. So the Heritage Environment Record, great. If you go on there, you can find basically, it's a database of archaeological and things like listed buildings and ancient monuments and so on and so forth. And you can zoom it in by, I usually go on, first I go to a more detailed search, and then I would go to search by authority, I think it is. There's a tab, you would click on that, and I would look for the local authority. So let's say I'm going to look for Leicester or Leicestershire, which makes sense. So I would type that in. I can then select another tab, which says basically there's a who, what, when, why, where. And if you click on when, and let's say I want to look for Roman, I'll click Roman, then I'll click search, and it will do a search across the database, looking for items that match your search criteria, and that will then bring you up a huge list of things. And if you click on each of those records, you can find all sorts, not just the information. Sometimes you can find photos, you can find detailed sort of coordinates and all sorts about where those things have been found, and that helps you to then build up this picture. Let's hope link number 2 works. Let's give this a go. B. Link number 2, National Library of Scotland. Go to their map section. If you're not familiar with this, again, for locations, it's just great. So I'm just going to very simply, you can select the map level and stuff like that, but we've got the old maps up here already. So I'm just going to zoom in to about where Leicester is, because I know where that is. You can see the left-hand screen is showing slightly older and older details. So I'm trying to get to, what's that look like? Somewhere around here. Let's zoom into a place. Okay, Nipton. Oh, so we are near. We're in North Leicestershire. We're going to come back down. So you can see now. So on one side we've got the modern map. Let's come down so we can see something a bit more. But on Leicester, so we're near Melton Mowbray, Little Dolby, Sunbury, and we'll come down Hilton. But the more you zoom in, then you can kind of get in. So again, if you're looking for comparable maps, it's possible. Have I gone too far? Probably. Yeah. Peter Magna. So there's South Wixton today on the right-hand side, and here's the, looks like one of the, are we up here? England, Wales, 1892 to 1908. I'm going to try and see if I can get up to Leicester, because then you can, on the inner city, like so, you can then start to get, sometimes if they've got the more state maps, it will, now you'll have to change. So if you change the map on here, you can then change the scale of the map. Let's find. There we go. So again, you can start to zoom in, and if you're looking at, almost do your own little map regression exercise from the modern maps. And again, it helps you build up this picture that you can use for your tours. People are fascinated by maps. If you find something that's really changed from the modern to there we go, that's a massive big shopping centre here. And actually on this map, you can see the warren of streets that used to be there. So, these are sorts of online tools. There are lots of online tools like this you can try and find, which can be really helpful in your research. I am desperately just going to see if this will work again.
Jim, I got the search element to work. I don't know if you can see the chat at all. I've put a link in there. It's the search, it looks like the main page is off, but the search element is okay.
Yeah, let's have a look. Thank you, Debbie. Oh yeah, brilliant, fantastic. Thank you so much. Okay, so from the home page, Debbie went on to the more detailed search, which has brought me here, which is great. Then I tend to go for the admin location, just so it narrows it down quite easy. So I'm just going to put Leicester. So let's go for Leicestershire. Let's do that. And I want to going to click on when, all periods, click on, I'm interested in doing Roman today, and click on Roman. And then just down here, there's the search button. And let's see if that works. Oh yeah, look at this. So you can see now it's searching all the way through. Unsurprisingly, I've put Leicestershire as my search criteria. So Leicestershire has come up with 2,509 results. So I will click on Leicestershire. It tells me information about the Leicestershire Heritage Environment Record. And I want to see all Leicestershire and Rutland HER results. Hopefully that's not going to crash. Okay. And then you can, so from here, look, you can see there's, these are the significant Roman elements. There's look at that, 16 pages. Let's go for page 3. The only reason I'm going for page 3 is because I looked this up earlier and I was looking for hopefully will be a helpful example. Baron saw Roman villa, view full details. Click on the one that you're interested in. And as it wakes itself up, slowly but surely, hopefully. Come on, Heritage Gateway, you can cope. There we go, Roman villa, Carrot Kill. So you get this info, so you get the monument type, you get what's been found, it's a Roman villa, you've got the address and everything there, summary of what's been found, winged villa building from 2018, but there was, additional finds found much earlier, before the excavation, all this information about the finds that have been found there. And again, these are all elements that you can use to build the story of your place that you're telling, and people love this minutiae. And then what you may then find as you work your way through this, there's all the associated finds. You might have some really nice pictures as well, like this. So these sort of fantastic sort of things to give, these were found on site. So again, this is all really good stuff that can come into your guided tours. So please, do look to see what is out there and make the most of it, because there is quite a lot online these days, which is really, really, really helpful. Okay, and then what you want to do is also keep a reference log of where you find your information, because information changes, or people might challenge you on things, or you might just, as you're writing it, and think, oh my God, where did I see that? And you can't remember, and to save you trawling back through your whole internet history or anything like that, if you found something really useful, just make a note of it, jot it down by the side, and then at least for future use where it is. Or if you come back and do that and say, well, that's not actually what I'm looking for this walk, but I might do another walk further down the line on that topic, I'll just make a note of it and just have your little notebook, keep it all nice and handy. And also keep an eye out for useful images, because again, depending on how you'd want to deliver your tour, images can be really helpful. We'll come on to that later. Map your route. So you've done your research, you know roughly where you want to do your tour, you've looked at the various spots that have been found either on the historical maps or on HER or whatever. Now it's time to start putting those pieces together. So what and where are the local sites that link to your topic? You know, do this on Google Maps, do it on an old-fashioned map, whatever works, just, you know, pinpoint them. Google Maps is great. I'll come back to that shortly. Decide if your tour needs to be or can be chronological or whether it's non-chronological, and that really can impact on how you plan your route. So for example, so the image on the side here is the plan of the siege of Leicester in the 1645 Civil War. And so I do a walk, which is we walk the siege. Now, because so much happened within a short amount of time across the city, in order to tell that story of what happened at 1 o'clock, what happened at 3 o'clock, what happened at midnight, what happened at 2 a.m. in specific places, it can be really hard to figure out how you get from A to B to C. So sometimes you have to tweak the narrative, or you might just think, okay, I'm going to have to tell that bit of the story in a slightly different space. So really think through it. You know, how important is it that you are telling a chronological story if you're going down that route? And if so, then try and plan around it. If you're doing something like Roman Leicester, where it doesn't have to be chronological as such, because basically you're talking about a broader period of time, it doesn't matter so much. But again, just try and think how it's going to work, how it's going to flow, and whether you need to chop and change backwards again in your storytelling effectively of what you're doing. Oh, thanks, Rachel, for that. In the chat. And again, from that then becomes your start and finish points. Once you've kind of figured out where you want to go, how you want to tell the story, and that will then most probably dictate where your start and finish points are. Usually helps if you make them somewhere quite well known or easily accessible, or if there's parking nearby, it always helps. And same with your finish points. If you're going to finish off 1.5 miles away from where you started, then you need to think about the impact of that. Okay, can people get back quite easily, or they going to have to go down several underpasses or whatever to get back? So again, think about your start and finish points and how that's going to fit into the user experience. And then as part of all that, obviously identify which topics and events you want to highlight in each location and whether they need to be in that location or whether you've got a bit of flexibility with some because it's a bit more generic about the topic rather than site specific. So start to think of all those things through. The reason I've highlighted with Google Maps, let's go back online again if it's going to let us. I've just chosen the Guildhall in advance. So not everyone knows it, but if you don't, this can be really helpful. So let me just go that way. Right, hopefully that'll vanish soon. So Jubilee Square in Leicester. Now, if you want to, when you're starting to think about your route in your map and you're thinking, okay, how am I going to go from A to B to C? And actually, is that, am I thinking too far, too much, too long? And I'm not sure. A great way to do it is to work it out on Google Maps. So let's say I'm doing a Roman Leicester walk. If you right click onto Google Maps now, you can do this whole measure distance thing, which is great. So there you go. That's my start point there, Jubilee Square, Leicester's Roman Forum. So then I will take my group across the road to here. And then let's go, we're going to go across this road and we're going to go to St. Nicholas's Church. So we're going to pop in St. Nicholas's Church because there's some nice Roman ruins in there. Then we're going to come out and then we're going to go down past Jewelry War Museum. Ooh, that went a bit crazy. Move the map there. That went absolutely no idea what just happened there, but let's go. Sorry about that. Don't use. All right, let's try that again. You get the general idea. I'm not going to do the full thing because I'm not quite sure where it's going. But you can go all the way around. You can cross the road. You can come all over the place, and bring yourself back. And when you come to the end of your route here, I can see that I've walked 368.4 meters, so it says down here at the bottom as well. So you can start to clock actually. It's in meters and kilometers, but you can convert that online quite easily. You can start to work out actually how far you're taking people, how far your gaps are between each stopping point, and then start to estimate, okay, how long is it going to take to walk from A to B? How much time am I going to need? If I've got a big group, they always walk a bit slower than just if it's just you and a couple of people. You can start to, again, map out in real time what it's going to take for you to be able to walk around and physically lead these walks. So again, use all these really helpful online tools. Let's find where I was again. Okay. Let's move on. So once you've done all that on paper, which is great, then you physically need to go and get on to the streets and do really just what it is, a risk assessment walk or risk assessment ride, and just walk it out. So start asking yourself these sorts of questions, and as you're walking, is the route safe? In terms of is it a dark wooded lane? Is it heavy traffic? Just start to think all these things. Is this a safe route? Not only for me, but if I was with a large group of people, start asking those questions. And by is it safe? So what are the ground surfaces like? Are we talking tarmac all the way? Is some of it gravel? Is some of it grass? Start asking all those questions. Are there drop curbs for access? If you've got someone in a wheelchair, can they get up and down? Are there regular safe crossing points across the roads? Stopping points, at all the points where you're going to stop, is there enough space on the pavement for you to stop a group of people there without them forcing other people into the road? All those sorts of things you need to start thinking through logistically as you do this walk yourself. Just think, okay, if I'm here with 10 people, 20 people, 30 people, what do I need to take into consideration? Pedestrian crossings, as I said, if you're doing rides, and if you're not, being mindful of cycle paths and other similar crossings that you might have around you. Where you're planning to stop, is there going to be a lot of traffic noise or other noises, industrial noises, a wild bird garden or something that's going to cause issues? Think those all through as well. And if there is, just try and think about, okay, well, if I definitely need to stop here, how might I overcome it? Just start walking all three. Check for points of interest. Point out, okay, so the thing that said on the map that this is where Leicester's Roman Forum was, fantastic. There's nothing of Leicester's Roman Forum there anymore. But is there something that you might be able to point out? Like there's a heritage panel, which has got a funky little picture of a reconstruction of Leicester's Roman Forum, or something like that you can point out to. Or actually, if you look up there is a really nice ornate window, Gothic window, which relates to the former medieval property that was on the site. So when you're in situ, start looking around for things that you could point out to your group of interest as well. Again, getting them to engage and interact with the locality. And then just double check also, do your topic points that you were thinking of talking about in that spot still fit now that you're there? Or are you thinking, oh, actually, this isn't actually the most relevant place to talk about this? Perhaps somewhere further on that you've seen, actually, there's a better window to point out or something like that. So again, just reassess what you're doing and where you think you're going to do it, and just take yourself on that little journey and imagine yourself as one of your clients, customers, attendees. You know, what are they going to want to see and hear about, and does it fit in that location? So when you've done all that, you've mapped it all out and you think it's all great, then you can actually kind of start writing your tour. This is the way I tend to do it. So for me, I create a script or notes for each stop. So I've got a user guide. So at such and such a point, I'm going to stop here and I'm going to talk about the Iron Age Leicester, the Koyotavi Iron Age Leicester tribe, and then we're going to talk about over there. I'm going to talk about the Temple of Mithras, and over there, which leads me to talk about wider Roman religion and so on and so forth, and just start creating what it is you want to say. And for some people, literally bullet points will be fine. That's all you'll need is one word things. Other people, like to script out the whole thing, so they've got a narrative. And especially for the first few times that you do something, I certainly find the way my brain works, the more detailed, the better. And then the more I do it, actually, I use less and less and less and less in terms of those sorts of prompts, because it all gets in there. And then just make sure when you've written it all down, have you still covered all the points that you wanted to talk about when you first came up with this idea? Have you covered all those points still? Are you still ticking all your boxes? Just worth double checking. Nothing worse than getting halfway around a tour and thinking, oh, I forgot to mention that. So make sure you've got everything. Do you want to use visual aids? So as you can see on the picture there, I have my own visual aids, and actually these also help as my script notes as well. So I have a series of images that I download or have access to. I have thankfully a good relationship with Leicester City Council and University of Leicester Archaeological Services and Leicester Museums, and they let me reproduce a number of their images for free, which is great. So what I do is I print those out, I laminate them so that they can be used again and again and again. But before I laminate them, I write my notes on the back. What I will say is, don't write the notes for, let's say you've got your nice picture of Leicester's Roman Forum, and then don't write your notes for Leicester's Roman Forum on the back of that one. This messes with your head a bit, because if you've got a whole pack of notes, you cannot see those notes on that. So you kind of have to write them on the back of the sheet before, so that when you turn that sheet over, you've then got the notes for the next sheet on the back of that one. Does make it sometimes quite complicated if you want to swap and change any of your tours or any of your aids, because then you've got to remap the process out. But that means at least people can see that, and you're not trying to hold your pack to one side, read your notes, and hold your thing up at the same time. It's all just nice, looks a bit more professional. Top tip. And then when you've got all that, trial it with family and friends. First time I did a tour, and I really didn't know what I was doing or what I was talking about. I did it with my other half and two of our good friends, and we just went out, and I went through. I didn't even have visual aids at that point. And in fact, the first time I did it, I tried to put my visual aids on an iPad. That was a nightmare, because one, I was worried about constantly dropping it, and two, you can never guarantee that the orientation lock will stay or that people can see, because the light bounces off them. Paper and laminates work brilliantly. So yeah, but do it with friends that are going to tell you, well, actually that bit was a bit boring, I really wasn't bothered about that, or that bit went on too long, or that bit was really cool. So have a critical friend. Okay, you've got your tours, you've written it, you're ready to go. Now you just need some people to come on and do your tour with you. So advertising and charging, these are the kind of the next things you kind of want to get your head around. So market your tour, usually just a short paragraph describing what you're doing, try and make it exciting, and find a related image. That usually does the trick. So Roman Leicester, come and explore the rise and fall of Roman Leicester on this exciting tour, something like that, with a nice picture of Leicester's Roman Forum or whatever you've got. Always nice. Means it's usually quite adaptable for social media, but also you can convert it into a poster and put more detail on with your start time and where to meet and all that sort of stuff. Online events platforms. Are you going to use them? So things like Eventbrite, they are helpful. People do use them in terms of searching for things. So it is frustrating though, in that they will take money off you even if you don't charge. Some of them, in fact, yeah, particularly Eventbrite, which can be problematic, and it can be a pain. So explore the other options. I used Ticket Tailor last year, the year before, which was great because it didn't charge me, but I found that hardly anyone was using that, so they didn't find out about my walks. So, you've got to weigh up the odds of, okay, do you want to use an online platform? If so, is it going to be beneficial for you in terms of what you're trying to achieve? But worth checking. Having said that, people do check things like Eventbrite, or if you've got local what's on guides from your local authority or your local museums or things like that you can put up for free. People do look at them. People are looking for things. The reason I've got this image on there is because I did a haunting histories of Leicester. So not ghosts as such, but basically some of the grimmer things that have happened in Leicester over the years for Halloween. And I dressed accordingly. But these two ladies had been sat at home in North Wales looking for something Halloween related to do, and somehow found my guided walk and drove over on the afternoon to get to Leicester for 7 p.m. to do this walk, and then drove back again. So people will find your walks out there, and so it is worth doing that extra bit of marketing and thinking about things like online platforms. Again, social media. Social media is great. I put stuff. I've got a Facebook page. I have got a Twitter, but I tend not to use it, or X. I tend not to use it anymore, just because that's how I'm politically aligned. But Blue Sky, things like that, so that but you can then also go for paid ads. I don't go with paid ads. Again, hit and miss then as to whether people are going to find it. But if you want to, and perhaps if you're trying to create a business out of this, and you want to generate a bit of momentum, then you might want to put some money into paid ads early doors just to get your brand and your walks out there. Worth considering. Thinking about when you're going to do your walks. So some will be seasonal. So people tend not to come out for walks in the colder, damper weather at night, I've noticed, unless it's Halloween. Halloween, they'll come out any reason. Christmas ones as well are great. But I tend to do my walks between March and back end of October. And that's kind of my season for doing my walks. So have a think about, and again, does that relate to your topic in terms of the season, the month? Are you going to do them on a weekday or weekday evening? Are they all going to be on weekends? If so, you'll find your weekends are suddenly getting taken up quite quickly. So again, just think about what audience you're trying to reach. If it's a family audience, odds are you're going to be weekends or possibly weekdays in the holidays. If it's more of an adult audience, then your evenings. If it's a retired audience, then actually they may have might be more willing to come out during the day, during a weekday. So again, think about when you're going to do it, and also what time of the day you're going to do it. So my rides tend to be sort of 10:30ish on a Sunday morning, or possibly 1 p.m. on a Sunday. my walks, I tend to do at an 11 morning, 10:30, 11, and a 12:30, 1 o'clock on a Saturday or Sunday for my walks. And then I do some during the holidays on weekdays and weekday evenings. But again, think about your audience and who you think might engage and how best to facilitate it to make it easy for them to come. Again, distance versus number of stops is where that Google Map thing comes in really handily. You know, figure out how long your distance is, figure out how many stops you've got. Are you going to need at least 5 minutes at each stop? And then 5 minutes, 10 minutes to walk to each stop, add it all up. I tend to make my walks about an hour and a half, although some of them, again, depend on Q&A that you have with the people. My Siege of Leicester Civil War one, because we have to ping it across the town a bit, is a 2-hour one. Any more than 2 hours, you start to lose people, both intellectually and some just start to walk off. So again, think about your distance and your number of stops and your sort of duration. And again, capacity. How many people can you safely take with you? Have a think about it. I tend to limit mine to about 30, but I know the Walk Leicester Festival people, they limit theirs to 20, which is fine. That's what their risk assessment is. So again, think about how many people. And then if you are going to charge, one, are you going to charge, pay on the day, either electronically or cash in hand, or is it going to be prepay only to try and make sure that you've got the money in the bank and people are going to turn up? If you are going to do prepay, what's going to be your cancellation policy? Are you going to give the money back to them? Which again, with things like Eventbrite, if they've already taken money off you, and then you're going to end up slightly out of pocket. So you've got to, again, think about what those policies are going to be for you. Try and move on a bit. So we've did a little risk assessment. Then you need to think about the wider risk management. So you will need public liability insurance. You are leading people out across the town or across an area. And if something goes wrong, which heaven forbid it should, if someone falls over and breaks an ankle, or if somebody has, a heart condition, or if a car, gets hit by a car, you need to make sure you've got public liability insurance. Look into it, different prices. I pay about £400 a year, but I have, just caveat that, I also do public large-scale events around the country. So yours shouldn't be, if you're just doing guided walks, it shouldn't be anywhere near that. But you do need to look into it and make sure you do it, just to cover your back as well as anyone else's. Make sure you update your risk assessment to include how are people going to identify you when you're walking? Are you going to wear a nice big high-vis jacket? Are you going to wear an Indiana Jones hat or a top hat? How are people going to identify you so that you've got that, people can, keep in touch, and hopefully you're not going to lose them. How will you communicate cancellations before the tour? If the weather's looking horrific, if you're ill or anything like that, again, start thinking about all of these sorts of procedures. How will you communicate hazards whilst you're walking around? Are you just going to hold up an umbrella? Are you going to shout glass on the floor? Just think through those sorts of elements. How will you manage movement of the group, especially down narrow streets across major roads? How are you going to do that if you get split, if the green man stops? All those sorts of things. Weather, how are you going to cope in different types of weather? What information are you going to give either pre-event or during the event? We did Saturday, we did a Richard III walk in Leicester, and it was really hot. So I kept saying to people, if you want to stop and go into that little shop and get yourself a bottle of water, not a problem. Just say so and we'll do it. So keep giving people the chance, to keep rehydrated. Oh, brilliant. Debbie's put in information. Festival of Archaeology, organizer information, has stuff about insurance, which is great. Again, appropriate clothing and footwear, both for yourself, but also your attendees. And again, what are your cancellation triggers? Be specific. Are you going to still do a walk if it's 35 degrees? Or are you going to stop at 32 degrees? If you've got forecasted winds at, 40 miles an hour, are you still going to do your talk? So again, be quite specific what your triggers are, and make it clear in your terms and conditions or whatever on the website. I will have to cancel if X, Y, and Z happens. How you manage confrontation. Hopefully no one will confront you horribly in your group, but as you're walking around the public, you meet some really interesting people out there. And yes, Dave, I like that. You need to figure out how you might diffuse or whatever. I get a lot of people you get on a Sunday morning, especially, you get some interesting characters who perhaps a little inebriated still. And I try and just joke it off and whatever, and then carry on and ignore them to a certain extent. But just think about how will you do it, and if needs be, have you got a method to, if you've got your phone with you, effectively, if you really need to. But heaven forbid that should ever happen. And then you've got all that figured out in your head. As Dave said, you've got your risk assessment sorted out, you've got it written down. You're going to go and lead your tour. On the run up, always watching the weather, thinking about appropriate clothing for me, thinking about appropriate clothing for my attendees. If you're using something like Eventbrite or anything like that, you can put a message out. If you're just using general social media or whatever, just say, anyone coming to my walk, please bear in mind, we're going to go a bit off road, so please wear sensible walking shoes, that sort of thing. Are you keeping visible as you walk around? Can you be heard? You can probably see on that photo, I have a funky little portable speaker and a head mic, which cost about 80 quid. Does a great job for me, lasts about 3 or 4 hours. Can get a couple of walks out of it, just about. And that really helps for me, especially if I'm going to be near traffic, project my voice, and also means hopefully you don't lose your voice quite so easily. How are you going to register your attendees? If you've got something like Eventbrite, you can use the app and you can just literally tick them off. Or are you going to go old school and print out a name list and tick them off as you go? As people arrive, are you checking for mobility and accessibility issues? Are you talking to people and saying, oh, we're going to be going this year, you're going to be okay with that? Or, if they say, well, actually, I might struggle, I say, okay, but there's a slightly alternate route we can take. Or, just think about how you might manage those situations. And then at the start, I always do a welcome brief, and I introduce myself and any helpers that I've got with me. I do a bit of a safety briefing saying, we're going to cross by Pelican Crossings, we're going to use the Green Cross code like we were when we were kids, and talk them through what we're going to do there, and then setting the scene for the tour. I always like to say, okay, well, this is what we're talking about, and imagine the time. And then as you're moving around, try not to be too aloof. People will follow you, but actually you don't have to go storming off ahead. I quite like it, and people come up and have a chat, and they'll ask you questions and all sorts as you're going, which is quite nice. Right. And then finally, before they go, you've had a great walk. Everyone's really happy, hopefully. They're really buzzing. Before they go, gather some feedback. What worked well, what could have worked better. That can be just anecdotally, or you can do it a bit more formally with like a fast feedback form, or for the out and about walk we did at the weekend, we produced a little QR code which took them to SurveyMonkey, which actually was quite handy. I just gave that and they passed it around amongst themselves, and they scanned with their phone. People are quite happy with QR codes these days. So that works quite well, and just gives you some feedback that either you can use to improve your service, or you can use it for marketing. And again, social media. So here's, just a couple of social media posts that I was tagged in, which was great. And that's great free marketing. I've got right just there, someone who's had a great time. Apparently I gave a grim description of the attack, and superbly described various things. You can't sort of pay for that sort of advertising. That's really good stuff. So again, just try and capture it. And also use it as an opportunity to advertise or signpost any future tours you've got coming up. You've got a captive audience there. They've enjoyed their time. They want to do when you're doing more stuff, because they may well come back again. So use it while you can. And then thank everyone for coming. Goes without saying. So having done all that, that's my, in a nutshell, whistle stop tour. Do you guys have any questions that you've beautifully put in the QA section? Debbie, can I ask you?
Yeah, sure. How do you deal with copyright issues, both of your work and using others?
Interesting. So So copyright for images. You should get copyright is the way I'm going to say this. And like I say, I have a very fortunate to have a good relationship with Leicester City Council and Leicester Museums and ULAS and folks who give me permission to use a lot of the images that they have on their websites and in their archives, which is really, really helpful. Realistically, that's what you should be doing. If the author or artist of a particular thing comes on your walk and sees that you have used their thing, they've got every right to come and seek recompense, I think is the way to do it. But it's up to you, whether you do that. That's your sole decision. But I would always recommend, yes, you would seek copyright. In terms of copyright of my stuff, that's interesting. I find it hard to copyright. I've never thought of copywriting my tours as such. I don't think I've seen someone who's kind of copied my tour and then gone elsewhere. I suppose if you're somewhere like York, where there's about 14 different ghost walks, I'm sure they all must have very similar material, and copyright is a bigger issue. Not something I've had to come across particularly, so I'm not really the best person to answer that, I'm sorry to say.
Okay, Dave Martin also says keeping a record of your sources is also useful to provide information so you can give appropriate credits. That ties in. Okay, cool. Nigel says, how do you manage random hangers-on who haven't booked or paid but still decide to join your walk?
That's really awkward. I really hate that, and it is really, really awkward. And you just have to try and remember that it's unfair to the people who have paid, and you just have to sort of kind of say, look, this is a tour, and if you have got space, say you're welcome to join, but I'm going to have to charge you. Or you just have to say, I'm really sorry, this is a pre-booked tour, we're fully booked. You are more welcome to come if you go to XYZ website, or I'm coming back, I'll be doing this again in a couple of weeks. You can find out more here. Usually if there's a group of people with you who have paid, they'll be quite vocal if someone tries to hang on without paying themselves. I mean, even though we do this British stiff upper lip thing and we don't do confrontation, it's just a case of just being friendly and say, look, I'm really pleased that you like this. Please come back. I mean, the only time I've had someone who did they'd actually see they hung on because they'd seen my YouTube videos, and they'll go, oh, this must, we know who you are, this must be good. And I said, that's great, fantastic, thank you so much, however, we're booked, come back on. And they were quite happy to say, oh yeah, just let me know when it's put something on your Facebook page and I'll happily come back and book on again. So if you give them a signpost them to a way that they can book, usually they're okay. But then Leicester doesn't have lots of tourists, so we don't have that many hangers on in that way.
Okay. Kath asks, does using third-party booking systems like Eventbrite cover you for GDPR?
You would have to look through their terms and conditions and their various things. The data, I don't keep any of that data, so it's on my phone. So now you've got me thinking through that. It's on my phone, but only for that period that the event's sort of live, whilst I'm clicking attendees in. I've never gone back and sought that data again. So
we can always find out for people, Jim. We have their details, and so anything you can't answer, we can find out and go back to them.
That is cool, because I'm going to make a note of that, because that is really interesting.
Peter says, fab talk. You touched on walking between points. Do you have any thoughts on the length of a walk between delivery points, and on that walk or ride, do you deliver anything or just make it clear to where you're headed next?
Sometimes you can walk. So there's a couple of walks I do, which, like the Civil War one, another one, where it feels if I'm walking for 10 minutes, it really feels like an epic amount of time that I'm just leading people. And so even if I end up and do kind of unofficial stops and just say, you know, after a few minutes, and this would be the route of X, Y, and Z, or that would be over there, just to try and, even if I'm not really saying much, just to try and break it up so it doesn't feel like these epic sort of distances. And 10 minutes does feel like a long time to me. On the bike, it doesn't feel quite so bad doing 10 minutes, because I think just because your awareness of other things, and it doesn't feel as long. But on a walk, 10 minutes without stopping feels a long time. But it's personal preference, and again, if it depends on what you've got to say and the route that you're taking on. But if I am getting towards 10 minutes, or I do try, then I always try and interject, even if it's just to say a joke. So you're having a bit of interaction at least, and people aren't feeling that they're being left out.
Okay. Someone asked, do you design tours to be accessible for different audiences?
I design tours for, I suppose, to be quite to have the maximum appeal and engagement factor. Now, if someone comes to me and says they have particular needs, or would I consider doing a tour on particular needs, then I would do that. But you kind of need that information in advance to try and make it, if you need to tailor something. Mine, I suppose, are quite generic, geared towards the majority as opposed to the minority. I think that makes sense. But it certainly doesn't mean that they can't be adapted and wouldn't be adapted, if that makes sense.
Do you need a DBS check for leading tours?
You shouldn't, if you are if you're working with if you've got a group of people. The DBS thing kind of comes in if you're going to be working one-to-one with children or vulnerable adults, which, if you're doing a group tour, shouldn't be the case. If you want to, I mean, you can always get a DBS. I've got DBS coming out my ears from various other jobs, so I've always been covered for that. But it's not essential, because you're not putting yourself or a client into a vulnerable position. But do think about, you may well have the best intentions in the world. Don't put yourself in a vulnerable position by taking on, working with unsupervised children or vulnerable adults, especially on a one-to-one basis, or without significant supervision on their end.
I'm intrigued by the cycle tours, says Rachel, but I'm pretty terrified by the traffic and potential for accidents. How do you manage them, and what are the extra considerations that you need for them?
So they're completely valid, and the cycle tours are. So I only do the cycle tours with Ride Leicester, because one, they provide ride leaders. So effectively, we have at least two other people, one at the front of the pack, and one at the back of the pack, and they are able to organise it so they can cross safely and stop traffic if need be. And so I completely hand myself over to them. Effectively, they pay me to deliver something, a part of their service, and they provide that extra level of support. Doesn't mean it can't be done, but I do think you need it. If you are going to do it independently, you do need those extra guides, I think, just because, like you say, the traffic, and also the group gets so much more spread out over the course of the stops, that you need to have someone in. And if someone's tire blows, you need someone who has the kit and the knowledge to be able to quickly repair a tire without it completely derailing the whole thing. So there are quite a lot of most cities now have some sort of cycle support network or similar. So it is worth, if you are interested in going down that route, having a chat with those guys. It may be something they offer, maybe something they never thought of doing before. If so, point them towards Ride Leicester, because they do it really well. Not just with me, they do all sorts of themes on all sorts of tours, and so they would be more than happy to advise anyone to help set up similar schemes around their area.
Jim, I'm not sure what time we're supposed to finish. There's just two more questions. Some Pete's asked, what's the standard charge per person per group?
Oh, I charge a fiver just because it's a lot easier financially, especially if people turn up with cash as well. And you don't end up having lots of pound coins in your pocket. I have seen, it depends on checkout, it depends where you are, and depends what you're doing. If you are somewhere like York or Chester, or where there's lots of other sort of guided walks, that can affect the price. Either it lowers the price, or sometimes it increases the price. I've seen people do walks around here charging £8-9, which I feel is just insane. But it's up to you. I mean, it's how long is a piece of string. I charge a fiver. I can go to bed at night charging a fiver. Sometimes you only have, if you've only got 10 people, that's 50 quid. That's great. For something that actually is really fun. And once you've written it and you've put the effort in, it's there. But have a look around. If people are doing something similar in your area, see what the going rate appears to be, and you can decide then really whether you feel that's whatever. Nigel charges £5 a head as well. Good for you, Nigel.
Yeah, and there's a few people saying that they have a back marker like the sheepdog thing, but it handles the admin and registration and deals with any incident and leaves the person being able to do there. I've just got another question from Dave, and says, how diverse are your audiences?
Interestingly, it can be quite a mix. So there's this photo here, which looks beautifully, almost stereotypically. What I've got in that group actually is lots of nice families. My rides tend to be more diverse. I mean, Leicester is a diverse city. I did the King Richard III walks on Saturday. I did 2, and I think each one had 20 booked on. And I think it was predominantly white, sort of aged between predominantly late 20s to 50s, 60s, couple in their early 20s, late teens, and mostly white Caucasian. I had a couple of Indian, sort of South Asian descent on the first walk, and I had a Chinese lady on the second walk as well. The rides tend to be a lot more diverse and a different age as well, which is really interesting, I find. So yeah, it is interesting, and that might be about my topics as well that I'm selling, that aren't appealing to certain demographic. I'm trialing a new one in the autumn, which is purely about the Ugandan Asian population in Leicester. So it'll be really interesting to see the demographics that come for that.
Okay, Jim, I think, should we stop at 1/4 past? It's only 10 past, and there's a few more questions, if that's okay with everyone's questions coming in. Peter says he's considering a tour where there are no above ground visible remains. You mentioned using images on your script cards, but do you have any thoughts or tips around tours where there's nothing to see? A good old archaeological
where there's nothing to see here. Move along. So I kind of think people need conceptual stepping stones. History's abstract at the best of times. It's something that's beyond potentially our level of experience, or elements of it are. So anything you can do to help illustrate in one way or another what it is you're trying to talk about, I think helps people to understand and engage with it. So I use illustrations. If I can find reconstructions, that's great. If you can do, I use analog images. That's cool. I'm trying to read the comments that are coming up as well as they're coming up. So if you've literally on a barren field or something like that, I think it's about trying to recreate the sense of, the story that you're trying to tell and the people that lived it. How can you recreate elements of it that will develop that empathy or understanding? Can you get your people to try and imagine trudging up and down this field, with a plow for whatever. And oh look, here's a handly hat plow, or that you've happen to have with you, just to try and make it more experiential, I suppose.
Okay. These are going to have to definitely be the last two, and any that come in the chat or anything, we'll try and answer if we haven't.
Okay.
Is a blue badge from the BTG worth getting when you start out, or is it something to look into once you've been going for a while? Asked Paddy.
It's really, blue badge is really interesting, and I think blue badge. If there's any on in the audience today, I'm intrigued. I know a couple of blue badge guys, and I think they look down on me because I've not gone through their training. That's fine. If you want to go down the blue badge route, that's great. It's not for me. It is a level of accreditation. It is a level of training, which is good. I've been talking to people my entire adult life, either as a teacher or as an event, working in events and whatever, and therefore I don't feel I need that training, so I've not gone down that route. But for some people, I think it would be useful. They memorize, from what I can remember, they memorize all their stuff, which I can't do. And I think that's something to do with a brain injury I received when I was about 22. My memory doesn't quite work like that anymore. So I think, it's worth exploring if you want to go down that route. And if you're somewhere that's highly competitive and having a blue badge is going to differentiate you or help you get other credibility to add to it, then by all means go down that route. But I don't think you essentially need to have a blue badge to do this.
Okay, and somebody in the chat have answered the other person, so I may have let you up, they may have let you off. So one Dave says, I have led walks organised by others. Who takes responsibility for public liability? And another Dave's answered him and said, I would say you get to that defined in writing to have something to either defend not you or give a basis for you to try and recover your cost. So I presume you would agree to that.
I agree, definitely. It's the rides and stuff I do for Ride Leicester, I'm doing it for them. Therefore, it's their public liability. It's their it's their beast. If anything goes wrong, and I'm there as an employee, but for any other term.
Great, thanks, Jim. If you could complete our short survey, please, to let us know. There's other events that I put in the chat for the out and about. When I press end, you'll be cut off and Jim will be gone straight away. So thank you everyone for coming. Thanks to Jim. I know I'm a moderator and you can't see me, but I have learned a lot. So thank you everyone for coming. That was really great. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you everyone. I hope it was useful. Good luck.